All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of What the Game Means to Me. I have a very, very special guest. I had the pleasure to be on his show about a week or two ago as well. Brandon from Brandon Sports Talk, who also has his own sports photography business, but we'll get into all of that. But hey, how you doing today, Brandon?
I'm doing good.
Good, good, good. Excited to have you on today for sure. To learn about you and your journey and all the things that you're doing in the sports world as well. Like I said, I've checked out a few of your interviews. Like I said, I had the chance to be on your show as well, and you've interviewed some of the guys that I've done podcasts with as well. And I really like the work that you do. You get a lot of um, college coaches. You get a lot of regular podcast people, such as me, and then also a lot of individuals that play different sports as well. So the first thing I love to always ask my guest is title of the show is what the game means to me. So what does the game or sports in general mean to you, Brandon?
So, what the game means to me is, of course, team bonding and like growing as a team. And I always love to like play football and basketball, like for fun.
Mhm.
But like, of course, I have a disability and I was never able to play like a competitive, like on the high school level. So I always went to like high school football games and was shoot games like that for the local high schools and stuff. And that's how I got involved in sports. So that's what the game means to me.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. Yeah. I guess I know what was it, I guess, like, I guess this one's a little off subject. I kind of played off, different question, but what was it like, I guess, growing up and, you know, wanting to, not be, but wanting to like play these different sports. But I guess you say, were you not able to?
Yes, I was not able to because I have a disability called cerebral palsy, which is a mild case whenever I was born, like 6 months old. And it
Mm,
kind of affects like my my legs were twisted in. So like I had to have surgery and stuff. And it was like hard because whenever I was a kid, I was wearing a brace. So like I tried out for football like in middle school, but I just didn't make it. So then I went on to like the side job, which would be like a manager.
mhm.
And then that's how I got involved like at a younger age. And then of course, growing now, I have a podcast and sports photography business.
Yeah, that's a real inspirational. Like I said, just never giving up, wanting to stay around the sport, and there's always other outlets. Even for me, that's kind of why I'm doing this podcast as well. Finding another outlet just to stay around sports and be able to talk sports. So that's really great. Congratulations to you as well, man. My next question I wanted to ask, just kind of like, what were some of your idols or favorite players that you might have had growing up?
So my one biggest idol and favorite player is Todd Gurley from Tarboro, North Carolina,
Oh
right
wow,
around here.
yeah,
He plays for the Atlanta Falcons,
of
but I
course,
was
my
a big
team.
fan. I was a big fan of him whenever he was at Georgia, and
Mhm.
I actually have a jersey, his number 3 jersey with his name on the back.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. Yeah, I forgot he is from North Carolina. You said what city is he from?
Tarboro, North Carolina.
Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. So he plays for my team now. He's starting to come along and do some good things for us out of the backfield. So, I guess we have that similarity. We both like him. What was I guess your favorite sports to play or, that you like to watch growing up?
I like to watch and play football like for fun
Mm-hmm.
because football is I my favorite position is running back, of course, because I feel like that's kind of like the leader. Even
Mm-hmm.
though people say the quarterback's the leader of the team, the running back I think carries the team
Yeah.
majority of the way.
Yeah. It is I think running backs are a very important position in football. It's probably I would say probably the second most important because if you have a good running back, one that's versatile such as Todd Gurley, it definitely helps the fluidity of your offense and you being able to do or run certain plays. So, and it also comes in handy when in fantasy. That's what I'm struggling right now. I don't have any really good running backs, but luckily I'm still in first place. So, if I get one good running back, I should be on top for a minute. But next question I wanted to ask you was, where did the inspiration for starting your own podcast come from?
Well, of course, I gotta say ESPN with Stephen A. Smith and
Oh yes,
all
everyone's
that,
favorite.
but Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp is also my favorite, and they kind of have a little bit of my take in it. But the most important one that actually got me started was Pat McAfee and Zach Schomburg,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
from Pat McAfee from the Pat McAfee Show, and uh, Zach Schomburg with his podcast that he has,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Strong Sports Opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I know Pat McAfee. He's really good. He's a really good podcaster. He does video ones, audio ones as well. But yeah, like you said, everybody from Fox Sports One, ESPN, those little debate talk shows definitely is probably a reason why I wanted to start it up as well. Stephen A. and Shannon Sharp are probably two of my favorites. They're just hilarious. But also, where did or how did you? Because with your podcast, I guess, like you said, you started up your podcast, and I guess I should ask you this first. Like some of the people, like who are some of the people that you've been able to, get in contact with and interview?
So I've interviewed people like Landon Turner, a former UNC Tar Heel player. He was one of my recent interviews, along with the Florida State softball head coach. I interviewed her like this week. This week I've
Mm-hmm.
interviewed her, and then I've interviewed, of course, some like local coaches like around my area, along with I reach out to coaches like on the D1, D2, and D3 level. Like, for example, I go all the way out to Maine University, Rhode Island,
Oh, wow.
Oregon. I've reached out to some people, but of course haven't heard back from them. But I go all the way out and find different kind of coaches.
Yeah. And I guess that leads me into the question I was going to ask is, you have had a lot of people that you've interviewed in the, in the sports industry that have these prominent positions, like you said, coaches, and such. So like, what's your secret and kind of like, how do you secure so many of these great interviews from these people throughout the sports industry?
So first, I like follow these people on Twitter, and of course they'll follow me back. And then most importantly, I just go out and reach for the stars and send these college coaches emails like, "Hello, Coach Higginbotham from UMO. My name is Brandon Pate. I have a sports talk podcast." Tell them a little bit of like why I'm interested in interviewing them,
Mm-hmm.
so they know that I know what they have already like accomplished and experienced, because you always want to like get the person that you're interviewing to know that, oh, you did
Exactly.
your research. So I always do my research, and most of the time I find out like what college they might have, like if they went to a college
Mm-hmm.
and played, I'll be like, hey, can you talk about your experience coaching at this college, but also playing at maybe a D1, D2 level college,
Mm-hmm.
and what that was like?
Yeah, that's a really good form. I mean, I guess I haven't really, tried the outlet, but I definitely probably would be taking some notes from you. Being able to, follow them and then just straight, just I guess just going out. The worst thing you can hear is a no. Like just inbox them, let them know, all what you're about, what your sports podcast is about, and let them know why that, you want to interview them. So that's really good. Like I said, I've checked out a lot of them, and you got a lot of different coaches on there,
Yeah,
and people that you've interviewed.
most importantly, whenever you hear from coaches and they
Mm-hmm.
say no, you always have to be like, "Oh, thank you for like getting
Reaching back
back to
out.
me."
Yeah.
Do not try to like harass them and be like, "Oh, hey, coach, can we do this in the future?" Because of course, whenever you deal with compliance officers, like how I have
Mm-hmm.
before, like the first time I dealt with a compliance officer, I
Mm-hmm.
would be like, compliance officer Jimmy, um, can you like maybe she can do it like, next month or a few months out. And if they already said no the first time, obviously that compliance officer already probably talked to that particular coach, or
Mm-hmm.
that particular coach has already told the compliance officer, hey, if it's not a national media company like ESPN,
Mm-hmm.
Fox Sports, or a local media company, I don't want to do an interview with
Yeah.
everybody.
Exactly. Yeah.
For example, I've I've tried to got Mac Brown from UNC,
That'll
and
be a
of
good
course
get.
he's a top person. And one person I know that I've interviewed literally told me that he does not do like anybody and everybody in the media world. He only does like ESPN, like, and you have to be a top media. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like some certain things like that is kind of like, yeah, you understand. Like you said, it's best obviously not to harass them and keep going on, but being respectful and letting them know that thank you for just getting back in general, because who knows, they may remember that in the future, and then it might be a day to where they see you get big, and then they even reach out to you, or they're more susceptible to do the interview, when you get a little bit bigger and everything. So no, that's a good key point, a good tip just for everybody to know and remember in general. Moving on though, I want to also get into um or ask you about your other company. You have Brandon Sports Talk podcasting, but I know you also do photography. So how did you get into photography?
So I was at a ACOT local ACOT game,
Mm-hmm.
and I was always there on like Friday night, because I would be in high school, and then whenever I graduated, it was just something to do, on a Friday. So then, after time, also have another business called Brandon's Photography, where
Mm-hmm.
that's how I actually got my camera. So then I was just taking my camera to the local football game, and I would stand like 50 feet away from the coach, like in the end zone, literally, like before I ever like became close with the coach.
Mm-hmm.
I would stand like 50 feet away from the end zone just to make sure, I'm not messing with the players, I'm not messing with the coaches, because I want them to win, and not be a
Exactly.
distraction. So I would just like stand there, take photos, and these photos would like be horrible because, of course, I would be like so far away from the players.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, with my long lens, you can only get but so far.
Exactly.
And then after time, I reached out to like the local media out here, like the local news artist paper, and they like had a freelance position. So I got that, and I was like, okay, I have a pass, I can cross
Mm-hmm.
that special line that, as a fan, you can't cross that special line on the
Exactly.
football field where like the players are. And I would be like, with this media pass, I could go anywhere and everywhere. So I did. And then I just started taking more photos at local football games, going like out of out of town,
Oh
taking
wow.
photos at different games, going like to different colleges, like this local UMO college that's right here in Mount Olive. Reached out to them, take photos from them. One of my friends played. She still does play, but took photos from her for her games and stuff. And then, of course, that's how I got big with the photography business,
Mm-hmm.
where I became a freelancer. And now everybody like around this area knows, like, oh, you're Brandon Sports Photography and Brandon Sports Talk.
Mm-hmm.
Let me like, you have any photos of me like at this game? And I'll be like, let me check.
Yeah. Yeah, because your catalog, I'm pretty sure is big, pretty big at this point. Well, I was gonna ask what camera and lens do you shoot with?
I have a Canon T3i. It's a 100 to 1000 millimeter, no, 50, 30 to 500 millimeter lens is
Mm,
my biggest one, I think.
okay, yeah. So I know that gets pretty expensive, but I know if you keep at it, eventually, photography is a big business, and the money comes along with it. So, well, I guess of course, you reaching out to these newspapers and then going out and shooting all these different games, and even going out of town in a sense to shoot some different games. I guess you could talk a little bit more to me, or talk a little bit more about like what the inspiration came from, from starting your own sports photography company. Because of course I know, like you said, you got big into photography, but I guess may pushed you to make that extra jump to start your own company.
So, well, the first reason is because my sister, she played sports whenever we were both in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I would go to her games every like game, see her play. And then I was like, I want to take photos of her, but I didn't have a camera at that time.
Yeah.
So then, of course, later, like after I think whenever I graduated high school, I got my camera as like a high school graduation present. So then I would like be like, oh, I have this camera. I'm going to like games every Friday night, like local football games. Let me
Hmm.
take it and then see what I can do. I love sports. Let me add sports to what I already did as a photography business
Hmm.
with Brandon's photography. So then I just did that, and then boom, boom, bang. Here we are now, 2 years out for
Oh
my
wow.
Brandon sports photography.
Yeah, I guess it hasn't even been that long, and you're growing popular, already known in the area that you shoot in. So that's great. That's great, man. I also wanted to know and ask because so photography is a lot of things. People, a lot of things, a lot of people, or a thing a lot of people want to get into, but it's harder than a lot of people may think. They think it's just just point and shoot or whatever. But I know it's way more complex than that. So to you, what are the hardest? Well, I guess first the hardest parts about shooting sports photography, and then you can also answer what are the easiest parts about shooting sports photography.
So the hardest part is, of course, the ISO and the aperture going from indoors to outdoors, and even from like daylight to, of course, where like not yet because, of course, with Corona,
Mm-hmm.
high school sports got pushed back to like February for football. But
Oh
of
wow.
course, like nowadays, we like, whenever it gets like pitch dark, you always have to change your ISO down, then have it high up so it will still be like bright and sunlight outside.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I can definitely see that. I remember when I used to shoot a little bit that I would always get confused a little bit about, those two things in particular, which I figure is, probably the hardest part for a lot of people, just getting that down and getting that right, depending on, where you are and shooting and the lighting and everything. So what about the easiest parts for you or the most enjoyable parts?
The easiest and most enjoyable part is, of course, just being like at the game, taking photos of these young athletes that are living out their dreams, and of course, trying to make it to college with the athletic scholarship, and giving them the photos that they like have played the game.
To keep for, just memories and like you
Mm-hmm.
said, even just usage of, a lot of kids nowadays, they like to post on social media and everything, uh just their pictures in general, them playing the sports, or even when they get an offer, or just highlights and things like that. So that's another good thing. Like you said, you're kind of giving them those memories and that opportunity to even do that, to make them feel special, and also like just things they can look back on in general, to remember, I played this sport, and Brandon took my picture. So that's great. That's great. Also, one of the last few things I wanted to ask, before we wind down and play our game top three, wanted to ask, kind of, with your podcast and with your photography business. I know, like, sports, just like me, has been a big influence in your life and something that you want to stay around. So where do you kind of see or hope that your photography business and podcast, kind of takes you in the future?
Well, for my photography business, I hope that, of course, I'll still get like more college like teams. Like right now, I'm only shooting University of Mount Olive College in Mount Olive,
Mm-hmm.
but of course, I want to make it to more colleges like, of course, Carolina State, ECU, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I would love to have a website for my photography business, because with me not having a Facebook
Mm-hmm.
due to like it getting deactivated, and of course I'm booked up, like basically I
Mm-hmm.
do not have the opportunity to share photos that I did, like because I would just post them on my Facebook page, like my Brandon Sports Photography page,
Mm-hmm.
Facebook page, and then anybody and everybody just took them, takes them and sees the work that I did. And of course, now I just
Yeah.
have the Instagram. So I'm trying to, of course, save my money up and
Mm-hmm.
build me a like official like BrandonSportsPhotography.com website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that definitely helps. Because it just builds your brand up and push you more out there, like people that might not be able to reach you locally. Even like you said, more so. I know North Carolina's pretty big, but maybe a few cities away, or even on a more of a national scale, they might be able to find you and hire you for different events. So yeah, building a website is pretty important. And hopefully, no one's out there stealing your photos and pictures because that'd just be terrible. But again, thank you. I appreciate you coming on the show today, Brandon. Answering all the different questions and everything. Of course, before we get out of here, I always like to play a game, and the most famous game I love to play is Top Three. So pretty much, I'll just ask you a question about whatever it may be. For example, my first question for you is going to be your top three favorite athletes, and then you just give me, of course, your top three. You can do it in order or out of order, whichever one
Okay.
like you can do. So, like I said, first question for top three favorite athletes.
So my top three favorite athletes is, of course, Todd Gurley.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to say Jalen Samuels, who now plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw him whenever he plays for NC State.
Mm-hmm.
And then my number three, I have to say it would be a mix between Garrett Cole and Stephen Curry.
Oh wow, that's two pretty good big athletes as well. I would hmm, out of those two, I think I would. I like baseball and basketball almost equally. I played both growing up. I would go maybe Steph though. Garrett wasn't. Well, it wasn't really his fault. I was about to say Garrett wasn't able to get it done for the Yankees to move on to NL or ALCS, but it wasn't really him. It was the hitting. So I'll give him a pass on that. But next top three favorite interviews that you've done.
So the top three interviews of my favorite that I've done is, of course, on Monday, I'm going to be interviewing Marquise Williams, who is a
Mm-hmm.
former UNC Tar Heel player,
Mm-hmm.
and he played in the XFL.
Yep.
He has to be my like most exciting interview.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have to go with the most watched video with 200 views is the Avery coach from Avery University, the
Okay.
football running back Jesse.
Mm.
And then number three would have to say would be one of the like local coaches
Mm-hmm.
around this area that actually got me started with interviews.
Okay. Cool. I guess his name or what high school he's from.
Yes, Steve Brooks from Charles B. Aycott, the head football coach.
Okay, cool. That's good. Pretty good. Pretty good gets. I remember Marquise Williams and him playing at UNC, so I'll definitely be checking that one out for sure. My next top three would be your top three favorite professional teams. It could be across any sports.
So my top three professional teams is the Pittsburgh Steelers is my all-time favorite. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
diehard Steeler fan because of my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Golden State because of Stephen Curry, and then I would have to say I'm a State fan, but let's go with Carolina Hurricanes as the NHL team.
Oh wow, yeah, threw a little curveball there. I didn't even know if you were a NHL fan, but fan of all sports. It seems like that's pretty cool. Um, yeah, and congrats to you guys in Pittsburgh. You guys are 4-0 right now. Hopefully going 5-0 this upcoming weekend. So, and then my last top three for you is going to be your top three favorite photos that you've taken. I guess you can name the athletes.
Okay, so Aycock versus Rosewood is always a big game that I've always covered,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a very competitive game. UMO versus anybody UMO plays because I just enjoy going out there to see my best friend Cassandra Lassiter play
Mm-hmm.
softball. And then, of course, Carolina versus State
Mm-hmm.
football game
It's
that
always
I
big.
cover on my small camera because, of course, I do not have a pass for
Mm-hmm.
media purposes and I'm not on the field college games like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, is that the third one?
Yes, that's the
Oh,
third
my
one.
fault. I missed one. It's probably my fault. And then the last one, I actually thought about another one. Your top three favorite sports podcasts or sports like shows.
Pat McAfee, number one. Of course, Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless. And then I would have to say anybody like on the ESPN YouTube channel because I watch ESPN YouTube a whole lot
Yeah,
just to come up with content video ideas for
yeah,
my cast.
yeah. They do a good job of that. I always used to when I was little, for sure. Definitely just kept ESPN on the whole entire day. So always one of my favorites. And all the personalities that's on there. So again, that and that concludes top three. Again, I want to thank you, for coming on the show today, Brandon. It was a pleasure, interviewing you, figuring out how you got into the sports industry, and then just everything that you do with your photography business and your podcast. You're doing, great, wonderful work, man. And I want you to keep on going, and I'm gonna continue to check you out for sure. Last thing I wanted to do is, if you had any advice to anybody out there that wants to start a podcast that's in sports podcasting, or any just good words of encouragement in general that you want to leave us with before we head off today.
Well, my advice would be to just start the podcast. And then, of course, if you're trying to get interviews, just reach out to like local coaches, athletes, sports business owners, coaches like on the college level, and just reach out to them and be like, hey, I'm just starting out. Can you like let me do an interview with you? And like kind of test your feet and do you actually want to make this a career and a passion, or is it more of a passion?
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. And then let everyone know where they can find you, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever social media outlets you're on.
You can find my sports talk podcast on Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram, talk underscore Twitter on Twitter, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. And for my sports photography, you can find me at Brandon's underscore sports photography on Instagram, Brandon Sports One on Twitter, and then I'm on Facebook at Brandon Sports Photography. But of course, I did say that my Facebook was disactivated, so I'm looking to get a website built in the future along with my Sports Talks website.
Sounds good. Sound good. So everybody stay tuned for those two websites coming out soon. Again, that does it for another episode of what the game means to me. You know where to find me at on Twitter at WTGMTM podcast, on Facebook and Instagram at what the game means to me as well. To check out this interview and more. So thank you again, Brandon. Appreciate your insight on all things sports, your sports podcast and your sports photography business, and then also playing our game top three. So thank you again, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.